All right. I'm not sure if I'm going to get this one correct, but hopefully this one will make sense. Oh, hold on. But I thought I would try to tackle this issue. I think that we're all products of modernity. We're all products of the internet and of instant gratification, whether it's a Pop Tart, whether it's coffee, whether it's whatever you want to say, video games, etc., etc. And it's lulled people into this false sense of security, this sense of, well, that's obsolete now. When I hear Bo the Fifth Column talk about, well, why is Russia concerned about countries on its borders? It's an obsolete idea to be concerned with that. That it's obsolete to thinking. And it's like, no, it isn't. When you've been invaded by Napoleon and Hitler, you're gonna feel kind of paranoid. Like I say, um, I think that it's such backwards and just frankly naive thinking to be like, we're still gonna continue on, boys, and this whole and it's really the false idea of progress. The idea that really we can't go back to that time, and that's never gonna happen. We're gonna be in spaceships. We're gonna be the Jetsons and whatnot. These are the same people. This is kind of like the movie Bob sort of thing. It's like I was supposed to be, going in space and whatnot. Instead, these racist Republicans. I mean, what was that? That tweet by Movie Bob. There's that one by Movie Bob. Um, what is that Movie Bob Twitter thing? What is it? Oh man, too bad European. I'm trying to think of what that fucking tweet is. I'm trying to see if I can find it, but I don't think. Yeah. Basically, he's like, well, I should be going in space and whatnot. Instead, I'm here on this planet and whatnot. And it's a false notion. People feed you bullshit. And it's a false notion to be like, oh, well, of course we're gonna have robots in the future. No, we're gonna have this, bruh. We can't even get enough fucking. We can't even get enough cars, to get people everywhere. We can't even get enough water for places. We can't even get fresh water for a city. What makes you fucking think that holy shit we're gonna have we're gonna be in spaceships and cars and because they still believe this bullshit. They do. They'll piss and moan and say, "Oh my gosh, it's so awful," but they still believe in the system. This is the whole problem with lefties in general is that they think that they can reshape society and they can make it more utopian. Of course Marxists will be the first one to say it's not utopian, it's not utopian, it's not utopian. Yes, it is. I don't give a fuck what you say. It is utopian. Trying to make groups of people magically just make all that shit go away. No, it increases it. Once the Soviet Union was close to falling, and by the time the 1970s and 80s rolled around, ethnic tensions were up hugely. And we saw that with Chechnya and everything else. It's like, yeah, they weren't allowed to practice their religion and everything else like that. That's gonna cause people to go crazy. Um, we have to realize is that there are people who just think it's weird and that we're backwards still. Is that, oh, we should be doing this? Oh, it's awful that person was stabbed 7 times by the smoke shop guy. Oh, it's fucked up. And usually the people who say it really want violence. They do. It's just a different type of violence. Number one, they don't want to see the violence because blood is icky and whatnot, but they just don't want to have the opinions. They don't want to deal with the reactionary views of people and all this sort of thing. And it's really what it is. We have to adapt from the modern world. We have to adapt from this modern world, this sort of system that we've been made to live in, because it's nonsense and it's a lie. This idea that you can just simply, that robots will save everything, or the government will save us, or whatever. It's never been that way. And as much as people really preach that idea, it's like we have to save ourselves and whatnot. They're the last motherfuckers that would come out. We have to save ourselves. Shut the fuck up. These folks who just think that it's backwards, that it's like, oh, well, now that Finland and Sweden are in NATO, they're gonna. It's like, do you really see that as a win? Say what you will about Russia and their invasion and whatnot, but guess what? NATO is not as strong as people think. I think that NATO, having more people involved, I think the tensions are going to rise within NATO. Because ultimately we've seen that they can't even help fucking Ukraine. They can't even give them enough stuff. Because, Ukrainians are getting killed. And of course you hear this cope answer where it's like, oh, Russia lost the war because they couldn't get more influence from people and they've embarrassed themselves and shit like that. It's like, yeah, but the thing is, though, it's shown the weaknesses of the system. I mean, you see what's occurring in Germany. They won't even have enough gas to heat half of their homes, so now they're getting electric heat. And then, of course, they're getting wood stoves out and everything else. So, are they really that fucking strong? Is NATO really that strong? No, it isn't. Because we see how much the world depends on Russia and their resources. Regardless of what, like I said, there's a lot of people who can cope and say, oh, Russia lost influence, oh, this and that. You're not going to talk about the fact that Europe blew itself the fuck out because it decided to do that. And it's like, Germany was really on that path of let's not upset the Russians now. Let's not do that for numerous reasons. Most of it coming from the fact that, the Russians have Germany by the short hairs. And now, of course, they're going around the world begging sheiks and begging, leaders to say, hey, we want some oil, bitter. We want some oil. Please give us some. We are dying. We don't want to, we don't want to die in the cold. No, nine. I'm sorry. Oh, but in all seriousness, that's what it is. And we see just how delicate this whole thing is. And that's really what the Russian-Ukraine war has done. It's shown how delicate and how much reliance some countries are to others, right? We heard, of course, reports about the fact that, Egypt and other countries would not get grains because of, the embargo against Russian goods and all this sort of thing. We've seen, the fact that, now that China is like, fuck you, basically, now we're desperately trying to scramble to bring microchips and, and all this sort of thing. We're trying to bring it back to the United States, but it's like, we see the effects of globalization and how desperate it is. And we see that globalization is a lie. That's my opinion anyway, that globalization is a lie, that it's no different than anything else. Is it? I mean, think of it in this way, is that communism and capitalism both create kind of a centralization that destroys everything. Is that we made it to a point where we just couldn't catch up. And so eventually, chips and the little squares and whatnot were made in, I'm trying to think, let me see here. But, microprocessor, I'm trying to see anything in the news. Let me see here. Microprocessor market size, the implication of blockchain. Okay, computer chip. Chips coming to U.S. There we go. Let me see if that, yeah, could revive U.S. computer chip industry. So it's like, but the thing is, though, is that it costs billions to do that. And the thing is, it was just easier because it's just like, yeah, we're actually just going to let, we're just going to let TSMC do it. It was completely centralized. We relied on, Ukraine and Russia for potash and whatnot. But now suddenly, because of this war, everyone has to virtue signal, But that is the game that we play. And the fact is that there are just going to be places that are left without. That's really the fact of the matter. This is the whole point of the video, is you're just going to have to adapt. You're going to go back to a way of life that people forgot about 100, maybe even 150, 200 years ago. And that's how you're going to live. You're going to have to live without air conditioning, without, without laptops, without Wi-Fi, without whatever you want to say, to a point. It's not going to be everywhere. Some places are going to continue on living that, continue on in that way. But yeah, I think it's important to talk about, because these folks who are just like, what a silly notion, what an old notion to think that tribalism is, is still existent. How is that? I mean, we should be able to accept anybody. We should be able to accept crime and all this. We should be able to accept debauchery and everything else like that. It's no different than the fall of the Roman Empire. It's no different than the fall of any society like that. It's just partying it out. Same thing with Nazi Germany. Is it, we saw people, of course, just giving into the nihilism of it all, and just, just drinking it up in Berlin. They knew that they were going to die, or they knew whatever the case was going to happen, but they just decided to party it out, right? You saw that in, Downfall, their Untergang. And you saw that, that's what they did. They were just going to party it up and just woo, It's a whole type of thing. We see the hypocrisy, of course, of it. I think it's important to mention, but the whole idea of like, stay inside for COVID, but it's okay to riot and everything else like that for George Floyd. It's okay for that. Or even, comparing COVID to the monkeypox stuff, where it's just like, well, yeah, mostly it comes from homosexuals, this and that, and yeah, eventually it will cross over, because there are plenty of bisexual people who lie, and they're going to pass it on. Don't get me wrong. But if you're not smashing, if you're not fucking like me, probably not going to be an issue. Probably not going to. But that's my take on it. We see that people can say what they want about the war in Russia and Ukraine, like I said. But what it has revealed is the weakness of globalization. And it has shown that, centralizing stuff in one area or another due to cost, due to, whatever, isn't good. And so, people are coping about it, but it's really bullshit. So anyway, I think that's all I got. Hopefully y'all enjoyed that. See you later. Goodbye.